A 16-year-old girl reported missing to a Central Arkansas dispatch center, but her information wasn't entered for almost 2 days. Good evening, everyone. I'm Donna Terrell.
I'm Kevin Kelly. The girl found more than a week later with injuries so serious she had to be hospitalized after her mother says she was held captive by 5 men. Marcy Manley and Fox 16 investigates how this missing child call went unreported in Hot Springs and why the girl's mother says it's time for law enforcement to really listen.
These days, Heather Loudermilk's shift in the kitchen, not the only heavy load she's carrying. After learning her daughter went missing from a treatment facility, juvenile court ordered her to attend 4 hours away from home.
They were responsible for my daughter and for her well-being, and you know, it may not be their fault she ran away, but I kind of feel like the police really dropped the ball on this.
16-year-old Julia disappeared from Quapaw House on September 18th. But when Heather arrived in town to look for her daughter, there was no record of the disappearance with law enforcement.
Hot Springs 911.
But a Quapaw House staff member did make a 911 call that night.
We had a female client here elope. She ran.
Which Heather didn't get to hear until we played it for her.
I'm just angry at everyone. I really am. I don't understand.
I know she's 16.
Dispatcher Taylor Gates, one of 2 on shift that evening, working multiple calls at once.
Okay, well, what's the reasoning behind needing us? We don't have any charges on her from that.
Okay. All right, well, then I'll let my boss know that.
Thank you.
Officers were never sent, a report never made, until Heather reported her daughter missing nearly 48 hours later.
It's law enforcement's obligation to immediately enter that child into the NCIC database and commence an investigation.
And according to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, there is no waiting period to report a missing child, whether an apparent runaway or abduction.
You know, when it comes to a missing child, time is the enemy, so it's imperative that when the child is reported, that investigation begins immediately. The longer that they're missing, the higher likelihood they're going to be victimized.
Hot Springs police declined repeated requests for an on-camera interview, issuing a written statement that confirmed Heather's account, saying in part, the unintentional neglect of not adequately listening and attempting to perform more than one task simultaneously hindered the department's immediate investigative efforts. Julia somehow made it from Hot Springs back to the area she calls home in northwest Arkansas. According to Julia's mother, she made it here to this Springdale apartment complex where things only got worse.
She was raped. And it's something that can never be taken back. And I think that if the police would have done their job and acted a little quicker, then she probably wouldn't have gone through what she did.
Julia was allegedly dumped nearby in Rogers and made it to a friend's house. Police later discovered her there and took her into custody.
It's my little girl. You know, maybe just another kid to them, but that's my baby.
She was transferred to Arkansas Children's Hospital where a rape kit confirmed sexual assault.
One of the worst things that a mother fears for their child when they're missing, you know, and it actually happened.
Do you feel like the system failed her?
Yeah, I think they did.
Now, the 911 dispatcher was suspended for 1 8-hour workday without pay. That notice was signed on October 8th, the same day we made a Freedom of Information request from the department for those disciplinary records. That's nearly 3 weeks after the 911 call was initially placed. Julia is recovering in juvenile detention center up in Benton County, closer to home. Rogers police won't confirm whether they're investigating the sexual assault.
What a powerful story, and I'm glad you looked into this much further. A lot of questions I'm sure we have, but in terms of the treatment facility itself, Quapaw,
right?
Is that being investigated? Is anything being done to determine how she ran away, or if changes will be made to make sure it doesn't happen again?
Well, DHS did do a licensing investigation once we made them aware of the allegations from Heather. They did discover that 911 call was made, so that followed licensing standards. And while the alarm system was disabled at the center when this occurred,
Really?
they're not required to have an alarm system. DHS recommended that they get that fixed, and also the facility did say that they would go through another round of training on how to report a missing child. At this point, we did try to reach out to the Qualpah Center to ask about those missing kids reports that came through, but we haven't heard back from them.
Hey, Marcy, real quickly,
Sure.
other than, you know, creating awareness for this mom and her daughter for that matter, any legal recourse that she can take?
I think at this point she's weighing her options to see what her rights are, and she is going to seek counsel, but as far as what might be the outcome of that, I think it's a wait and see situation.
Okay, all right.
Good story.
Very good. And again, we want to remind you, you can call or email Marcy if you have a story you would like for her to investigate. She's really good at her job. The phone number and email address, you can see it right there on the screen. And if you want to remain anonymous, you can.